everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariah, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to study for the ASVAB and get a well above average score. Now, I have made a video on how the whole MEPS process happens and taking the ASVAB and going through the physical, but I had some requests to know how to study for the ASVAB, so I figured I'd make a separate video for that. Now, jumping right into it, in the ASVAB, there is 9 different subjects that you will be tested on. There is arithmetic reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, mathematic knowledge, general science, electronic information, auto and shop information, mechanical comprehension, and assembling objects. Now, that may seem overwhelming and a lot to study for, but in the ASVAB, you were only scored on 4 of those subjects: arithmetic reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, and mathematic knowledge. The other ones are just to see, depending on what kind of job you want to do. Let's say you want to go into auto body, study for those more, because then they'll look at those scores, even though they don't affect your score. If you're aiming for one of those jobs that deals with that kind of thing, definitely study for that, because then they'll look at what you got in those other subjects and they'll be like, all right, yeah, this person definitely knows what they're talking about, and they kind of have an idea of how this thing works. Yeah, definitely focus on those 4 main subjects. That way you're not wasting your time on the other ones, unless you know what kind of job you want and you can study for the other kind of subjects in more depth. So the first subject is arithmetic reasoning, which is basically word problems. So it's math problems. It's kind of like what you learned in like middle school. It was like, oh, Sarah went to the store, bought 10 pineapples and 2 apples and whatever, and then brought them home. She dropped a bag and she lost a few things or whatever, something like that. And then you kind of have to figure it out based on the story, I guess. So they're kind of like word problems. The other one's mathematic knowledge, which is basically just numbers. So it's like fractions, decimals, multiplication, division, and things like that. There's no words, it's just solve for X or whatever. So for that one, you need to know your formulas, just because that's all you just have to figure out which formula goes to which kind of problem. The third one is word knowledge. Now, it's pretty much impossible to learn all the words and all of their meanings in such a short amount of time to be able to prepare for the test. But I mean, it's really hard. I have a few apps that I'll let you guys know which ones I use on how to study for it. But yeah, it's basically just do your best. And then the last one is paragraph comprehension. So they basically tell you a story, and it's like, oh, well, what was this person's reason behind what they did, or what was the topic of the story, or what was the meaning, or whatever. So it's basically, you can't skim over it, because if you think you know the answer, or if you think you know the subject or the answers for the problem, it might just be like at the very end you'll actually figure it out. But if you just skim over the whole problem, you might miss it, and they do that, because I tried doing it and they got me on a couple. Yeah, so let me show you a couple of the books I used or started to use. Alright, so these are a couple I tried using. Just Master the ASVAB, and then ASVAB for Dummies. So I skimmed these over a little bit, but I don't know about some of you, but I'm a visualizer, I guess. So I need to see it like done out in front of me, otherwise I won't get it. It can't just be like, oh, you're gonna do this, 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 and this, and this will give you the answer. I have to actually see it done out, otherwise I probably won't get it. So I used a couple apps to study for the ASVAB, because the books just didn't cut it. I mean, they tried to describe, they did a pretty good job like telling you like how to do every subject that there is in the ASVAB, but it just, like I said, I'm a visualizer. I need to see it done in front of me, like done out. So I use the apps. If I'm able to, I will pop up the pictures up here, which ones I use. One of them is called ASVAB Practice Test 2020. This one was definitely the better one out of the 2 that I used, because it had everything and it definitely helped me. The other one is called ASVAB Air Force and Mastery, which is basically on the same idea. They have like practice problems on how to do each subject, and then like practice tests. So they're like mock ASVAB tests. So those 2 were definitely like the 2 that I used. They helped me out tremendously. and I don't think I would have passed without them. The big thing that I needed help with was math, on how to like which formulas to use, and because I graduated back in 2016, and I went to school or college for 3 years after that, but I only took one math class, so I really needed to brush up on my math skills. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. Let's just say that. It was kind of like a teacher, like online school. Like he literally goes over every single possible problem or formula you'll run into. So if I remember his name, I'll put him in the description box. Just to touch up on the other subjects and what kind of problems or questions they'll be asking you. For general science, it's exactly what it sounds like, general science. It's like, what's bio? What happens? I don't think there was any like formulas in there, like what happens when you mix this and this, at least not for mine. I don't think they go into like that depth, but it's basically just like, what is this? What is bio? What is... But I'm not that good at science, so I don't know that much. But yeah, it's just basically like, what does this mean, or what is this type of thing? For electronic information, I kind of lucked out in that arena because my brother is an electrician, so I kind of have a little bit of insight. So I kind of asked him to like share with me some of like the general specific things you need to know before you like to be an electrician, I guess. So I kind of have a little bit of insight. So that one I didn't do too bad. But the apps are like the best thing to do because like there's so much information. There's like, you wouldn't even know where to start to learn. So that's why the practice apps are like the best way to learn about these subjects. Auto and shop information. I'm sorry for those who didn't really grow up around fixing their own cars and things like that, but I mean, some of these things are kind of like, it'll say like, well, what's a drive shaft? And it's like the possible answers. Most of the problems, like the last one, is like, all right, that's obviously not the answer. So you basically just have to think about in your head a drive shaft, like what do you think that is, and then just pick the answer that looks the best, basically. So guys, my family grew up fixing cars. I kind of had a little bit of insight into that subject. Mechanical comprehension, that's kind of like gears, or they kind of have like contraptions, like, oh, you pour water into this tub, and it weighed down, and then it poured into this one. It was like, well, how much water is in each tub? And then there's like gears of, so if you had a small gear with 10 teeth and you had it that was turning a big gear with 15 teeth, how many rotations would the small gear make before the other one reached this amount? So it's like things you have to think about in your head. Like I said, the apps and even YouTube, you can do YouTube videos. They basically give you a general idea of how things work like that. Again, it's kind of like math. Like you have to be like, oh, but you just have to look it up because it's hard to explain, but it's basically math in objects put together. And then the last one is the sunlight objects. This one, in the app, they make them a little bit easier than what they actually are. So they'll have like a circle. It's kind of like puzzle pieces, but it's not just like ones that are super easy. They'll be like, a lot of the shapes will look the same. All of the possible answers will have almost the exact same shapes, except for one is just a little bit off. And you literally have to visualize putting those pieces into the circle to see what kind of shape they'll make. So it was very difficult. I don't know how different it's going to be when you guys take the ASVAB, but I think it was my last subject I did. So I knew how much time I had, and I had a little bit more time to relax because I knew it was the last thing. And that's what's nice about taking the ASVAB, is it lets you know. Granted, I wish it was like accumulated time. So say you had like 20 minutes to do mathematics, 10 minutes to do general science. I wish it was like, it would save the extra time you had in each subject and put it towards the next one. But it was not like that. So it was, when you had 20 minutes for mathematics, you literally only had that time for math. So if you say you did it in 15 minutes, it doesn't matter how much time you have extra, you only get this certain amount of time for each subject. But it was kind of nice because it showed up the top the 9 different subjects you had, and then it shows you were on like subject 5, subject 6, or whatever. And then it showed you which problem you're on. I think there was always like 10 or 15 problems depending on the subject, and it would let you know which one you were at. So you're not like going through the test blind. You kind of had an idea of how much time you had left and how many problems you had. at the end of the test, depending on what kind of job you're looking for, I think everyone takes a, what's it called? Like a personalized test at the end. So basically it's like, are you known for lashing out or like all the time, or keeping things down and then bursting out with all your anger at one time? Or it was just like, it's things like that, but it was like, I wouldn't do neither of those. But so it's kind of like you have to pick like the one with that least sounds bad, I guess, or something like that. So it's like, it makes you sound like a bad person depending on like what kind of questions they have. But you basically just have to pick which one you would most likely do if you were put in that situation, kind of thing, even though you would probably never do that. These questions I have heard, I wasn't sure if this was true or not, but I have heard that they do affect your score in the jobs you get. Because if you keep picking the worst outcome or the worst answer, then they're going to be like, all right, who is this person and how are they going to work in the Air Force or Army, whatever. Yeah, definitely be careful of that. And you can't, because this doesn't affect your actual ASVAB score, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can't just keep going and clicking on random answers, because I think it was like every 10 questions, it would be like, if you read this problem out fully, you would click answer A, not B. So if you were just clicking all the answers and going to the next question, you click B, they would know you're not reading the answer or the question, and they'll be like, hey, like, take this seriously, like this is your career on the line. So just definitely be aware of that. Another one was, I think it was if you were like interested in like cyber technology or science or whatever, so like all that techie satellite stuff. At the very end there's another test. I didn't take it because that's not the type of jobs I was looking for. So yeah, I didn't have it, but I heard some people who were interested in those types of jobs had another one at the end. I'm not sure what kind of questions they were. I'm guessing they were scientific and technical. I'm not sure what they were, but yeah, so definitely be aware of that if you're interested in that type of job. I found out that I was going to take the ASVAB. It was like 4 weeks ahead of time, but I was moving. I think I had like a week left after I physically moved to actually study for the test. I tried to study here and there, but again, I wasn't aware of the apps. I was trying to use the books and it was just not working. And then I was stressed about moving and stressed about taking the test, and I was like, nothing was like sticking in my head. So I was like stressing out, but I definitely had more time to relax and study for the test after. So I think I really studied for the test. I think it was like just a full week before I actually took it. Like I said, the best things I used to study were those 2 apps and YouTube videos, basically. And I studied for hours. Like even at my job, I would just have the app open, and then whenever like it got slow at my job, I would just like answer the questions, and it passed the time, which was nice. But yeah, those are my tips. If you guys have any other questions, please let me know in the comments. I would be more than happy to answer them as best I can. If you haven't seen my video on how MEPS goes and the physical process and stuff like that, I will put the link in the description box, and I hope it helps you guys out. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this helps. And for those of you who haven't taken it yet, study hard and good luck. Thanks, bye.